What's up, YouTube? Capital G here, letting you guys know what the heck happened at the 2018 North American World Championship qualifier out of Fort Worth, Texas that just wrapped up. I, of course, spent my weekend watching the live stream and reading up on the coverage so that you didn't have to. So this was a very interesting event. The attendance was, once again, pretty spectacular. Almost 1,800 people entered the event. Not quite the super over 2,000 numbers that we've seen in the past few years, but I think it's kind of to be expected. Some people were probably turned off by the new end of match procedure. That probably could have killed, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred people from going, but still, I think the attendance was very respectable. We had about 60 for the Dragon Duels, but keep in mind, as always, this is an invite-only event. Well, you can get your invite there, but for the most part, not everybody is actually able to enter this event. It was a very interesting event, right? And I think that there are two ways to kind of look at it. I think that you can look at it as I would have, where I expected the UK Nationals, which, you know, just happened a little while ago, where Burning Abyss actually ended up taking that, and we had Pendulum Magicians in the finals. I expected that to kind of have an impact on our NAWCQ, or you can just say that this event kind of played out as normal. And honestly, the UK Nationals had almost no impact on our events. You know, obviously there was the Burning Abyss deck that ended up winning that event. It was playing, you know, Sekka's Light and Savaris and all this other crazy attack with Rescue Cat and Gallus the Star Beast. We saw that deck actually in the first feature match of the event, and it was a Sekka Light build. It played against heroes with BLS and making, you know, Lady Beatrice to dump the Fairy Tale Snows in the grave and all that good stuff. But then we really never saw Burning Abyss pop up at all for the rest of the event. There were some other decks that most people would kind of expect to do pretty well, like ABC really didn't have a significant showing. And for the most part, I think that this event kind of came down to one deck. Well, no, it was really just the top two decks. Like, I never watching this event outside of the deck that ended up getting second, which was ironically Pendulum Magicians. I never felt like it was anything other than Goki or Trickstar Sky Striker's deck to, or event to win. Those were by far the two dominant decks in the form, or at this event, and I kind of felt like this was a two-horse race, even though, as I just said, Pendulum Magician, shockingly enough, did make it all the way to the finals. And if you watch some of his matches, Walter Hule, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce his name. It's Spanish, so I know it's kind of weird because of the J in Spanish and whatnot, but he did make some kind of questionable plays. He even said during his interviews that he felt like he was making a lot of misplays in his matches, but he was getting the job done. And some of it is just because Pendulum still have some of the highest ceilings or Pendulum in the grind game has such a high ceiling because the Pendulum summon can just take over the duel. Once you Pendulum summon more than twice, it's basically over. Your opponent is going to run out of resources no matter what deck they're running if they don't get rid of those scales. There are also just so many like just great negate cards with Jackal and Naruto and other things like Odd Eyes, Vortex Dragons. But one of the cards that he was really making a lot of good use out of, and he said that the Trickstar matchup was a deck that, you know, he said that matchup was really good for him because he said that he built his deck really to be able to survive Droll and Lockbird, which I would probably say was the most dominant hand trap of the entire event. Droll and Lockbird was just ending Trickstar turns, it was ending Goki turns, and if those were the best decks, as I just told you, I mean, they can't really do much against it. Obviously, it was hurting them and not really hurting him so much, where he would summon like the Supreme King Starving Worm, and his opponent would like Droll him, and he would still be able to kind of play around it, not getting the draw from Electromite. But in general, I think it was the Zangshik Magician. That card was so good, being able to negate a light monster. Obviously, hitting something like a Candina can really shut a Trickstar player down, and if you hit the Isolde and Goki, then that's pretty big. Now, really, to me, I think that the biggest storyline of this entire event, was how much people were willing to tech random crazy cards to be able to shut down hand traps, the Goki deck in particular, right? So I think the ideology with Goki is basically, if you have any two kind of like Goki combo pieces, you get the basically extra link, because if you can get Isolde on board without having it be disrupted, you're basically going to extra link, and most of the time, unless your opponent has spear mode or something crazy like that, you're going to win win the duel. We saw cards like Neospatian Aqua Dolphin coming out of the side deck of many of the Goki players as a tech card to basically get rid of things like Droll and Lockbird, to get rid of things like Ash Blossom, to get rid of other annoying hand traps that they didn't want to deal with. If you guys don't know about this card, it is a level 3 warrior monster, so obviously you can summon it out of your hand with Marauding Captain. You can actually go into the MX Saber Invoker. You can pull a Goki monster from your deck. You can go into Isode using this card. It's obviously pretty nice for that, and it discards a card from your hand. But again, if you're playing Goki, like basically if you're able to pop off, the other cards in your hand are kind of irrelevant. You don't really need them to get your extra link and to get where you need to go. So basically, you activate this card, you look at your opponent's entire hand, which is nice because you get information, you get to, know exactly what they have. If they happen to have any brick cards, you don't have to worry about those. And you look for, a hand trap, as most hand traps like Droll and Lockbird, Ash Blossom, those cards have 0 attack, and you just pick apart their hand from the hand trap, and you get to basically do your play. Same thing with Drag Down from the grave, or Drag Down into the grave. We have not seen this card, I don't think, ever played outside of Dark World competitively, and this card actually decided game 3 of the finals, Goki versus Pendulum Magicians, where Pendulum Magicians went second, and he had a copy of Infinite Impermanence, and it was discarded from his hand. He ended up drawing another non-hand trap. I think it was like an Abyss Riser or something like that, an Abyss Actor or Curtain Riser or something like that. And obviously a card that doesn't really do much when your opponent has the super nuts extra link on the board, and it was basically just GG no re. People are willing to take neg-1s if it means stopping your hand trap, and even though this card can be Ash Blossom, which I don't really think most people would do that, to be honest, it does give them, again, information. They get to see your entire hand. Your opponent gets to see your hand as well, which doesn't really matter if you pop off. And the interesting thing about Drag Down is it's not susceptible to the Winter Cherries because you don't have to put a monster on field. We saw other cards like Called by the Grave. This one we already knew about, which this card is super strong with Goki basically going first. Just another way of stopping the Droll and Lockbird, stopping the Call by the Grave, the Winter Cherries, and Infinite Impermanence. I feel like more people are going to be looking at this card. Some people were saying, oh, it's just a glorified effect failure, but the great thing about Impermanence is the fact that Call by the Grave cannot hit this card. We saw a couple of other cards that I'm not sure I quite expected to be this dominant, but Topologic Bomber Dragon, I kind of feel like this was the coming out party of this card in particular. I mean, obviously you're going to have your Firewall Dragons is probably the most dominant Link monster there, but I kind of want to say that this was maybe the second best Link 4 monster over the entire tournament. I felt like I saw this card significantly more than Borreload, and it was putting in more work than Borreload. If you guys don't know, if a monster is special summoned to one of this card's Link points, you get to blow up all monsters in the main monster zone. So what people were doing, especially in the Trickstar deck where this card is nuts in the mirror match, what they were doing is basically they would wait for their opponent to commit something. They would commit monsters to the field or something like that, and then they would use like a Hornet Drones. They would summon the token to that point and then just nuke the entire board. Same thing can be done with Scapegoat. Same thing can be done with the Trickstar, not Lilybell, but Trickstar Lycoris from your hand, which you can obviously do during either player's turn. So it's like so many ways of disrupting your opponent with this card. And then obviously it has a really big attack, so it is quite difficult for a deck like Trickstar to just be able to attack over this. To a lesser extent, we did see it with Topologic Trishbenia. This card does have burn damage in it, so it can be kind of useful for end of match procedure, and it is quite good against decks like Altergeist and Pendulums that put a whole bunch of spell and traps on the field. When we look at the top 32, I think I got it here. You see, this pretty much doubles down on my on the point that I was making earlier. It really felt like this was kind of a 2-deck format, or really a 2-deck event. Yes, again, Pendulum Magicians did make it all the way to the finals, and you will see some other decks kind of splashed in here. Mech Knight Invoked, Paleozoic made it all the way to the top 32. You've got a couple of Spirals in there. If you look at the top 30 or top 64, you'll see other decks like Dinosaurs. There were some Spiral variants. I believe 2 Altergeists made it to the top 64. World Chalice. Altergeist had a very just mediocre showing, honestly, especially coming from me, an Altergeist fan. I really thought that we'd make it at least to the top 32. For Altergeist not to even make it there is actually quite disappointing. The Paleozoic, I actually watched this feature match. It was very similar to what we saw a lot of the True Draco players doing, where the Paleozoic player was actually running a Demise build, not running any hand traps, very similar to True Dracos, as they run Demise and they don't run any hand traps. And basically the concept is is if your opponent is going to super spam the board, if they're going to make the extra link with Gouki, essentially you're trying to flip over like a floodgate for something like Gozen Match or Rivalry of Warlords, and then when your opponent goes to activate the Tri-Gate Wizard, you're basically just having to negate that one card to be able to crack their board. That one card can be Impermanence, that one card can be Solemn Strike, that one card could be the Monarchs of Rupt. As long as you kind of go runner with your trap cards, you can crack their entire board. And when Gouki's, like, usually if they blow their load turn 1, yeah, they'll have some monsters in their hand, but they won't be able to ever establish that super crazy play that they already invested in. And once that play goes bye-bye, a lot of times you can kind of play and you can outgrind them. Also, you'll have the Gozen Match or the Rivalry of Warlords kind of locking down their ability to summon those monsters from the hand. But some takeaways from this event: number one, going into the European Championship, I think that again you're going to see an event where hand traps are kind of god, and being able to stop them is everything. And like, people are going to be willing to run, I guess we could say, objectively bad cards just to be able to stop them. I also think that Asode is just, man, I mean, Firewall is the best link monster in Yu-Gi-Oh, but I really want to say in the TCG that maybe Asode has surpassed Electromite, because I believe if you resolve Asode and you don't like get stopped, I think you just win the game. I knew that card was good when they first revealed it in Brains, which is why I was like, oh my god, how is this a good Noble Knight card? This doesn't even make sense. But Asode is really that bitch. Like, she is absolutely crazy. And then really, I think that you kind of just have to look for these two decks. You have to look for Trickstar and Gouki kind of going in different directions, where the Trickstar Sky Striker deck is all about basically one card engines. That one card engine can be Hornet Drones, it can be Startup Engage, it can be, you know, Trickstar Candina or Light Stage or Terraforming, as those cards kind of all intertwine. Or you can go the route of break my board. I can pop off with 2 cards. All the rest of the cards in my hand can basically just be used to stop your cards. And if you can't break this extra link, you basically are going to lose the duel within my next turn. Those seem to be the 2 dominant strategies. You will see other decks pop up, but honestly, it just doesn't look like anything is nearly as strong as these 2 decks. So you guys let me know what you thought of the event. I did love the Konami commentary, Billy Break on the mic, obviously Robert Boyajian, Jerome McHale. I liked how they not only talked about future cards that are coming out, because they even talked about like the Thunder Dragons, stuff that has just been revealed in Soul Fusion, but they even talked about the FNL list a little bit. And Jerome McHale talked about how he didn't like the design of Charit, so that tells me Charit is probably going to be banned for a very long time, as I believe that Jerome McHale and Robert Boyajian and really Konami R&D, they control the ban list over here in the TCG, so don't be looking for sure to come off the ban list anytime soon. But thank you guys for watching. As always, let me know what you thought of the event or any of the craziness that ended up winning. Shout outs to Gabe Vargas. Oh my goodness, I spent this entire time talking, I didn't even thank this, or I didn't even congratulate this guy. He ended up winning with Gouki. This is his smile. This is when you know you're going to win the championship. I believe he plays in Toronto. Kid's only 16 years old, so to win an NAWCQ at 16, definitely congratulations. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already. Turn on that notification bell for daily videos.